Live from our studios in Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's your favorite Thursday night show, Up Late with Sehon Marshall. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the host of tonight's show. Live from our studios in Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's your favorite Thursday night show, Up Late with Sehon Marshall. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the host of tonight's show, Sehon Marshall.
No, I'm still trying to work with the audio because there's supposed to be an introduction and I didn't hear it. So I am hoping that when I bring my guest into the room, I can hear the guest. No, this has nothing to do with what is audible on Facebook, but rather what's audible in my ear. So it's another Thursday night, and it's the Thursday night, sorry, after the elections of 2025. After the elections of November 27th, 2025. Now let me check to make sure that this is working because I'm flying blind. Let's see now. We're doing that. As always, I ask you to share, so I'm going to do that now. Give you some time to share the live as well. So let's see. I'm going to try and share that. I see. Right, so we are here. I'm going to share that on my page. There you go. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Let's try to get tuned in now. So all of those, sorry, all those of you who are watching, and I hope you're hearing, let me make sure that, let me know if there's no audio, all right? My good folk, all right? But yeah, so far the picture look good, and so forth. So I'm just hoping that the audio will be good as well. All right, so welcome to this another edition of Up Late with Sehon Marshall. We've been off air for a while. We've been off air since sometime in September because, as I said this morning in that promo I did, because of the elections campaign. I was all over the place. I was up and down the road. I was doing things on a Thursday night. So I didn't want to compete with the campaign. But now the campaign is over, so guess what? I am here, and hopefully we will go through this program, the rest of this year, and from now on, uninterrupted, unless something happens that I seek to give way to. So thank you so much for joining, all of you, wherever you are. I'm so happy to be back on the air, and I hope you're as happy to have me back as I am to be here. Please, again, I ask to share the live. Remember, we are both on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you know someone who is interested in seeing the program, but they do not have a Facebook account, listen, tell them go to YouTube. The good thing about YouTube is that you do not have to have an account on YouTube to be able to see the program, to log in. All right? So tell them, listen, go to YouTube, you see the program there, and keep in mind that these programs stay up on those platforms. So if you didn't get it tonight, you can watch it whenever you have time, over the weekend or something. You can watch it at your own pace. All right? So good night, everybody. And again, please, I ask that you share the live. All right? Make sure that many individuals are here watching us. So hey, you know what is the greeting for the last week or so? It's Wata Wapa. Wata Wapa. I don't know why Dr. Gonzalez said that, but he said it sometime. And listen, the individuals are bringing it right back and making it relevant. But the elections are over and we are moving forward. It was the manager who said, we have a country to build. And if we don't do it, who will? And so it's time to get past the elections and start focusing on nation building. This evening on our program, I have a very good friend of mine, a professional in her own right, she's a trained journalist. And I'll bring her in just now, but I'm just letting you know what lies ahead. She's a trained journalist. She worked as a teacher previously and also at the National Broadcasting Corporation as editor. Before that, she worked with the Searchlight newspaper, so she is experienced in both print and radio journalism. So this is someone who has experience in journalism, and I realized that over the campaign, she's in Taiwan now studying, pursuing a master's degree, and I realized that over the campaign she was doing her own review. She had her live that she was doing, and she was doing her own bit from afar. It's not the first time that someone has approached local stuff from afar, so she was not a pioneer in that regard. Not that she was witnessing anything from over there, but that's beside the point. So she was going to join us a little later on. But I want to just put a little context. We had the elections, a short elections that were announced on the 28th of October, held on the 27th of November. And both parties campaigned vigorously. Lots of glitz, lots of glamour, massive rallies, and of course the underground house-to-house campaigning. At the end of it all, the New Democratic Party emerged victorious. So victorious that it shocked many people, including me. The New Democratic Party managed to secure 14 out of the 15 seats available. The lone candidate for the ULP who managed to keep their seat in the ULP column was former Prime Minister Dr. Dion Ralph Gonsalves, the representative for North and Central Windward. Now, let's be clear. This is not the first time that such a victory has occurred. It is not the first time that I saw one media house refer to it as a historic sweep. It's not. For those of you who are old enough, you would remember that in 1989, the New Democratic Party, led by former Prime Minister Mitchell, swept the polls and took all 15 seats. All. And so for a period of 5 years, there was no opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it's not the first time that the New Democratic Party has achieved such a feat. As a matter of fact, they have not been able to equal their best feat. But what a feat it was. Sweeping 14 of the 15 seats. And doing so in very convincing fashion. There was some of the seats that were marginal last elections were won by much wider margin by the New Democratic Party candidate. Apart from Orlando Booster of Central Leeward, who lost by the narrowest margin of just under 50 votes, the other candidates lost by in excess of 200 votes. And in some areas where the vote count is normally 200-300, much more extensive victories. And so the question is, what could have caused this? Some opine that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is so properly placed that they can't understand what caused such a defeat. And many have theorized, and I'm hearing them and people are talking, as to what the reason for the defeat was. Many different individuals are coming forward with their own opinions, their own reasonings. And some may be right, and some may be far off. Some may tell you that they got this information from speaking to people. They may have gotten a voice note here, a phone call there, a text message here or there. And so, as we begin to unpack and distill what happened last Thursday night at around this time, eventually when the dust settles, one thing is clear: the ULP must rebuild. And in his speech immediately following, well, not immediately following, the Saturday following the electoral defeat, opposition leader of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. John Ralph as former Prime Minister, made remarks suggesting that the party will rise again and there will be a rebuild. That is clear. The form that rebuild will take, that's unclear. But I'm sure that in the coming days and weeks, we will see that form take shape as the opposition goes into Parliament. Let me introduce and bring into the studio my guest for tonight. As I said, Sehon Marshall. She is a journalist. She studied in Taiwan. She worked with the Searchlight newspaper and with the National Broadcasting Corporation. She's currently in Taiwan pursuing master's studies So let me welcome Shadon to Uplate tonight and to all of our viewers wherever you are. Shadon, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
I am not hearing Shadon. Do we have, uh, let's see if I need to turn my volume up. No, my volume is up just fine. Shadon, could you please hold 1 sec so I can sort the audio. 1 sec.
No problem.
I'm trying to sort the audio out there. Let me hear you. Let me hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
You still can't?
I can, yes. I really love it play.
Great.
Wonderful. So again, welcome to Uplate with Sehon Marshall. I believe it's your first time on. So
Yes, it
welcome.
is. How are you?
I am well. Um, I have so much time on my hands. I've been eating coconut and bread and coconut and sugar.
Oh, I did not need to see that video on my timeline, Sian. Oh my lord.
Let me tell the truth. Which one is better? Mine or Sabuto's? Sabuto's breakfast of champions. Which is
Listen to me.
better?
I
Eh?
expected the minute I saw Sabota take out that knife, I expected the plantain to be cut just exactly the way the plantain was cut. Nothing about that video shocked me. So
Oh,
yeah.
oh. So I saw a comment and the person said someone needs to go and take said, but I tell you, notice we are time on our hands. I making video eating coconut and sugar, Sabuta making the
Listen,
breakfast of champions.
in your influencer bag at this point.
Thing, PM is walking through Gas with the rod of
Snow was
Moses.
out. Snow was out and his son hat. I'm like, wow.
I tell you, that's what happens after electoral loss when you've been so busy in government for the last 24 years that now all of a sudden you have time on your hands. Dr. Gonzalez is using the time to visit preschoolers, he's using time to visit his constituents and so forth. And it I believe that relaxation period is necessary. I mean, the ULP while in government was going at a really frenetic pace, and so I believe a lot of these former members of parliament, members of cabinet, need to rest. So I think, yeah, take out the camera, do some influencing, but remember there's a rebuild ahead. Shannon, what were your expectations going into the elections, and how did the result? What was your reaction to the results?
Well, what a whopper. What a whopper. To be honest, you and I spoke during the election, and you heard the fair. You could say you heard the fair and the concerns I had, and I always thought it was going to be a very close election. I thought maybe um back to 8-7 for the ULPR and 9-6 for the NDP. I never expected a 14-1. But when I saw the results, I said, you know what? I understand it. Although I didn't expect it, I understood why the results were what they were. Going into the election, come speaking from the media background, I'm being very honest, the NDP ran a much better campaign. They ran a much better campaign than the ULP. It's ULP went from being the young people party, the party of the progressives. NDP took that and ran with that. They won the election on social media first. So nothing that we could have said at any of the campaigns or done or any artist that could have been brought, they won the election on social media first. And that's just the truth of the matter.
Well, now, you speak about social media, Chanel, and which means that you believe that the while previously the youth Labour Party was able to attract the young people, which would be the demographic that mostly follows the social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Is there a suggestion, therefore, that um, the young people of this country have gravitated towards a more attractive campaign by the NDP? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, yes, yeah, very much so. See, and from the design of the NDP t-shirt, just the design and the quality of the NDP's t-shirts, and I'm talking everything holistically, right? That attracted young people more than the ULP's normal red with a white graphic. Um, People are visual beings in this new generation. We don't get our information in 30-minute increments or 25-minute increments. We want it in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, the longest 3 minutes. And NDP capitalized on that by having so many young people lead this campaign and be at the forefront. So they were able to use social media, and they brought the young people with them because that's where young people are. They met young people where they were, so they were able to capitalize and use it to sway more people who probably, even though they are progressive and they support the ULP's policies, they were attracted to what the NDP was offering just through social media.
You, that point that you made about the t-shirts, that cascading yellow with the green and black the bottom and so on. I must admit that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
And like you said, our t-shirt essentially looked the same that they did last election and the election before that and the election before that. Um, so there was that sameness, as you said, and I agree with you on that one. There was that sameness regarding that part of the campaign. But you were one of the few persons who actually went in and you looked at the manifestos. How much of this election do you think were fought on substance? And by substance, I mean what was actually in the manifesto. And I'm talking to you as the first person on it because you're a young person. And so there's no coincidence that I'm talking to a young person first. Maybe next week I'll talk to someone who's my age and get a different perspective. But I really wanted the youth perspective on this one because we were in a campaign that said own your future and we were really targeting the young people. But it seems like you said the aesthetics, the visual pleasantness of the NDP's campaign seems to have caught the young people. So to my question, like I remember what the question was I was asking you, but to my question, Shidong, how much of it do you believe was based on substance, having done on your live exposes on the manifestos?
I have said this to persons after the campaign. I said this election was the messaging and the discourse around the election was very juvenile. And I'm trying not to speak down to or insult anyone's intelligence, but the discourse, most of the conversations around this election was extremely juvenile. Let's take, for instance, the $500 being offered by the NDP. One of the approaches that the ULP took was to say, me now why you $500. Most people took me now why $500 that, and I decided to say, you know what? Okay, we're talking about the $500. Let's not beyond the $500. What happens after the $500? How does this mother, after she gets this $500, how does she send this child to preschool? How does she work? How does she send the child to primary school? What happens when the child is home and she doesn't have the 500 access to the $500 anymore? How is this sustainable? The conversation never got to that level. There were a few people who spoke on that level, but the conversation mainly stayed at, we getting $500 to make a baby. And that is, in essence, juvenile. It was of no consequence because most people saw times are hard. I'm going to have a baby. This extra $500 would help me. The rebuttal to that $500 was childish and child play. A lot of people did not read the manifestos, and I know they did not read the manifestos because I would have conversation with people and ask, so what in the NDP's manifesto attracted, what attracted you to the party, or what attracted you to vote for the party? And it's always, well, it's just time for Ralph to go. We fed up a ULP has been here for too long, it's just time for Ralph to, and they 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 use that to their benefit. People didn't care, and honestly, the NDP could have offered them a big stone in the manifesto and just put Ralph has to go at the bottom, and that would have won people over. Nobody cared about the substance of the ULP manifesto. It was 100 and something pages. The NDP's was 40 something. And of the 40 something, 20 something were pictures. And then of the ones that actually had words on it, it was like half pages. They had maybe 8 pages full of text. So a lot of people didn't read, a lot of people didn't understand what they were reading. And at no point was the message dumbed down or explained to people. I tried to do it, but it wasn't done. So back to the point, the messaging, the discourse, everything around this election was juvenile and just base and surface level. There was nothing past that people would have to think or go and search. Like I keep saying, Vincentians have this much information, and not only Vincentians, people have this much information, and they never try to go this far to get something else to add to what they already have.
But you know, if you stay on messaging, which is something that you raised very early, and you compare the manifestos, let me go back a little bit and preface what I'm saying by this analogy or this very real example. Within the last couple of years, Dr. Gonzalez has written a number of books, and so has Camilo. He wrote a book. Camilo wrote a book, Globalize, Climatize, Stigmatize. Not a very long book. The name, catchy. It was probably 100 something, which I can't remember. Dr. Gonzalez wrote a book not long after, The Political Economy of the Labor Movement in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and one of the usual very lengthy titles, 400 something pages in the book. I sat down and I read Camilo's book in a weekend. I'm yet to finish Dr. Gonzalez's book. Now, the fact that Camilo's book was 1/4 of Dr. Gonzalez's book did not make it any less enriching and informative. But the very first thing about Camilo's book was the title, Globalize, Climatize, Stigmatize. Dr. Gonzalez's book, The Political Economy of the Labor Movement is between so and so and so and so and so, sounded to me like a thesis, and it didn't attract me at all. So we go back to the fact that you said NDP 40 some pages, bullet points and pictures, ULP 100 some pages that requires in-depth reading. Do you think that that could have been a turn off? Or is that nobody cared to read any of them at all? They were just caught up in the mood of the campaign.
Definitely, it was a lot of people were like 100 pages. That little too much for me. But it's also people were caught up in the mode of the campaign at that point. The NDP had done so much on their social media with the little um posters that they would put out and say an NDP government would give you A, B, C, their 60-day plan. People just cared about that. Like I said, the UNP could have put out a two-page manifesto that said everybody gets $1 million. And then the NDP put out a manifesto that said get rid of Ralph, and they still would have won. There was nothing that the ULP could have done at that stage. I mean, at the stage where the manifesto was launched, that would have changed anybody's mind because people had already decided who they were going to vote for in the lead up because the NDP was always so visible, so present, so consistent with their messaging that people were already swayed, and maybe people who were like, what should I do? I keep seeing NDP, I keep seeing yellow, I keep hearing yellow is the code, yellow is the code, yellow is the code. It's going to always be there. So it's it's both. It's that stage at the campaign, nothing was going to change, and people did not want to read, and people did not care when NDP was giving them small, bite-sized pieces all along the campaign. Whereas we had to wait for the ULP to put out this big document a week or a couple of days before the election, and I had to sit down and read this 100 page something. Then some words in it, I had to go in the dictionary and look it up. It was just a little too much, too little, too much, too late.
Now, if you look at the campaign, I would then come back to you and say, but they didn't need to really read the manifesto because if you listen to Dr. Gonzalez on radio throughout the 5 years, if you listened to the meetings and the rallies, you would hear the message that is in the messages that the manifesto contains. So you may not necessarily need to read the manifesto, but you made a point, which is what I want to shift towards, that there was a get rid of Ralph campaign. Do you think that regardless to what St. Vincent and the Grenadines has gone through in terms of development and whatever was in the manifesto of the ULP going forward, that the messaging of get rid of Ralph had already sunk to a certain point that almost nothing that the ULP said or offered made a difference?
Yeah. And let me just address the first part you said when over the 5 years the PM was talking about it. Um, a lot of people don't know. Uh the PM comes on NBC Radio. Well, the former Prime Minister, he would come on NBC Radio every Wednesday and he would talk. Stories would be put out by the API, NBC, other media. And I would still meet people who would ask me, what is happening with this? And I said, and I would say, but there's a story on this. NDP has something in their manifesto that is just what the on-site program is, but people don't know about it because people don't seek information out unless it affects them at that time. But back to the second point with the get rid of Ralph campaign. What yeah, that was what it was. It was I get rid of Ralph campaign because people had fatigue. A lot of people were like, all my life, you will be there, let me give somebody else a chance. And two, also, Sian, even though to a point that I keep making, the ULP is setting St. Vincent up, but the ULP was setting St. Vincent up for long-term goals. And Vincent just was tired of the God, I had to wait 5 years to see this materialize and to see this start to make profit. I had to wait. I want something now and I want to see it. profit in my pocket. No, I want to see when they do I could get my salary raise. No, they wanted no, no, no. People were tired of the long term, the port, the airport, a lot of these big capital projects, the hospital, everything was something that we had to wait a year or two to start seeing how it actually would benefit us. People wanted instant gratification and instant rewards. So that was also another big turn off from what the ULP was doing, and that was how the NDP was able to bring more people in. Because if you look through social media, it's people are fed up of waiting. We want it now, we want it done now, we want it instantly. I want the money in my pocket today, not next week, not next month. I want it today. And it is short sighted. We have to watch and see how it will play out with this, because setting up a country for success is not an instant thing. It takes time. But if people want things now, and I think the ULP was too far-sighted in wanting to keep trying to explain to people that the port will bring in more product and more revenue, so that means more revenue, and more people will be able to ship, and more businesses will be able to bring in more product. But then that ain't going to happen tomorrow morning. That ain't going to happen by Christmas. That is going to happen in 6 months. And I want it by Christmas. So that is another way, and that is another one of the messaging that they use to get people on their side. That instant gratification.
How do you see that now? Now, I'm going to make a bold statement that you, as much as I am, are a product of the education revolution. How do we square that notion now that at a time when Vincentians are way more educated, more highly trained, more highly skilled, that it is difficult, or rather, you believe that they are not willing to look at the bigger picture as one would expect a more educated population to do, but rather run for instant gratification. So here what, I'm going to give you a bonus at the end of December, and I'm going to give you $500 to make a child, and that is a message that reverberates more with them than say, listen, we've just built the port, positioning Sainsbury and the needs to be a transshipment port in the region, which will revolutionize the blue economy, along with our hospital or the modern hospital that would expand health services, and our airport that's already reaping benefits. We see the hotels. How do you square that circle that a more educated population becomes more short-sighted and more prone to instant gratification messaging?
I think the fact that the education is what's playing into this. A lot of people feel I'm educated, I have this degree, I have that degree, I should be wealthy, I should make this amount of money, I should have that amount of money. But it's a lot of them are not seeing it. And I keep repeating this, and people always fight me for this, and argue with me for this. We have a problem in St. Vincent, and it's not St. Vincent, it's the rest of the world, where we live to keep up. So we're trying to keep up appearances with maybe our friend who was born in better conditions than we were. We're fighting to keep up with what we're seeing on social media. We're fighting to keep up with the idea that we have in our head of what life should be at this stage. So some people have decent paying jobs, but the decent paying job is not enough for them to keep up with what they're seeing on social media. This person is my age, and she's traveling, and she's driving a new car, and she's doing all of this. So I want to keep up. So in order for me to keep up, I need to have this now. I cannot wait for our tourism sector to continue its development, and for the Marriott to come, and for Sandals to open its beaches, so more people will come, so more money will be in the economy. I cannot wait for the hospital to open so that we may have health tourism coupled with the hospital in Georgetown. I cannot wait for the cannabis industry to take off so that we could have cannabis tourism. So people would come to St. Vince when they come to the beaches, they come to Marriott, they come to Sandals. We have little cannabis stores and cannabis shops where people could get their stuff. So we position ourselves to that. I cannot wait for the port for more ships to come for St. Vince to become a transshipment point for the region with this port. I can't wait for the Argyle International Airport to become a house or a hub for airlines. It is too long, it's taking too long. My friend buy a dress last week from a top designer. I want it next week. I need it now. So even though we are educated, even though a lot of people know better and a lot of people understand what the ULP is doing, the need for us to be where we think we should be, the need for us to look like what we're seeing on social media outweighs what we should and what we know because of our education. So we're educated, but we in St. Vincent, we're still very short sighted in a lot of the things that we do. So the NDP, I keep saying it, the NDP produced what they want. The NDP produced and gave them an idea and a concept of what their life could be like. And it's money. I'm getting more money. I'm able to provide a lifestyle for myself that I think I should have and I should be providing for myself and I should always have or have had. So that is why what happened on November 27th happened. Education or education not. Everybody had the same thing on their mind. Money.
No, no. Let me add straight up though, for those who are viewing that I'm chatting with Chanel and what Chanel is giving would be her own perspective. And if you know Chanel Monroe, she is never shy to give her perspective. Now it's not saying that anyhow at all that you must agree with her or that she's speaking for all Vincentians. If you notice, she's referring to herself when she's talking about her perspective, and I very much appreciate the perspective of one young person, and I'm sure there are others. Now, Chanel, one of the things that is happening are those same explanations as to why we lost. And you have your perspective, you've given a number of suggestions, and I've spoken to other people who have suggestions. But at what point, because my feeling is that with all of that though, part of the rebuilding process of the Unity Labour Party has to involve these candidates or the leadership or the new candidates, whomever, going out naturally listening to people. And I want to step to another part of the discussion so you can understand what I'm talking about. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with the numbers, but I've gotten some preliminary numbers already. And they are instructive. They are very instructive. These elections, 64,504 persons voted. 64,000.
Registered.
Hello?
I
You
said
see
the
that
registered
registration
number
thing?
was 110,000
I'll tell you
registered.
this, right? You see that 110,000 registered? I think that list needs to be cleaned up. That needs to be cleaned up. Because when you go to a lot of the communities, people tell you that, listen, almost everybody voted. Who did it? So the people who are here are voting. They're those who stayed away. They are those who stayed away, absolutely. But the 63% turnout that I'm seeing, I honestly do believe that it's higher than that. I really do. Right? But be that as it may, so you have 64,504 persons voting. Of that number, the NDP got 37,000 and Labour got 27,148. Now, those numbers represent for the NDP an increase of 4,000 and for the ULP a reduction of 5,271. So the ULP's vote were reduced by 5,271. The NDP votes increased by 4,102. Significant. So now you have a disparity in of the popular vote of some 9,854 votes. You want to know what's interesting about that? Almost 1,000 people less voted this year than last year. Last election, Chinal, 32,900 and something people voted NDP, and 32,419 persons voted ULP, a grand total of 65,687. So almost 1,000 people more voted last elections than these elections. But
Um,
of a reduced number of votes, the NDP was able to increase by 4,000, seeing a reduction of the ULP's votes by 5,271. The question then is, what happened? Did people who supported the ULP last election switch? Did they stay home? Or was it a combination of both?
okay, so remember in the beginning I said NDP won this election on social media. Let me take it all the way back. When the ULP won the last election at the swearing in Heritage Square, I think it was. I was in Taiwan then pursuing my undergrad, and I was watching it with my best friend. And one of the things the Prime Minister said, and I always remember it, you have to go into your constituencies and meet with your base, meet with the people in your community. Take at least one day a month or one day every other week and go in. No, former Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is the busiest man in cabinet or was the busiest man in the cabinet. He was always traveling, he was in meetings, he was doing everything within his portfolio. But there is no one in his constituency who could tell you that he was not a consistent presence in his constituency. He would do the luncheon for Mother's Day for the residents. He would go and visit schools. He would go to people's homes. If he coming home at night and somebody have a barbecue, the Prime Minister is coming out of his transport and sitting down with the guys. If on a Sunday he going somewhere and he's back and they playing domino on the block, he comes out. He doesn't drink. He just say, "Me put $100 by the bar. Go and go and take all they want." And he will sit down and he will play dominoes with the guys. He was a consistent figure in his constituency. Now, in the other constituencies, I've talked to people who live in other constituency, and it's when we don't see them, we don't see them, and if you call them, you don't see them. And that's where it is. He also told the cabinet members and the senators, everybody, don't make promises to people you can't keep. And it was Sir Vincent who first said that. He said, stop making promises you know you cannot keep. So they're going to meet somebody, they're going to say, Minister, I'm looking for a job, but I can't seem to find any, anything, anywhere that call me next week and come by my office next week and we go talk and we go see. And then you call them next week, they're not answering the phone. You come by the office the next week, they're not answering the phone. They're not coming or they're not at the office. You go to see them or the secretary telling you wait, hold on, all kind of things. So all of that played into those numbers because I said everybody who was registered to vote for NDP and everybody who said they were going to vote NDP voted for NDP. Everybody who's registered with the ULP and people who support the ULP did not go out and vote for the ULP because some ULP supporters have this mentality. I rather stay home and not vote than go and vote for NDP. So there was that sect. There was also the sect of no party offered me anything I want, so I'm not voting. But there was also ULP supporters just did not go out because Sian, and I'm not going to lie to you, I was speaking to someone at the youth rally And she said to me, I so upset right now when they brought one of the speakers out. That is a slap in the face of every ULP supporter who stood up for ULP against that person's attack. We stood up for ULP, and then the Prime Minister made a statement and said, this young lady is now a part of the leadership of the ULP. And people were like, what? What kind of statement is that to make? ULP lost support trying to hug up the enemy, and they let go the supporters, thinking, oh, they will always support us. They went into it with this, oh, they will always support us because we is ULP. But people had already grown tired because they have seen ULP run to people who support the other party or people who just don't like them to try and get them on the good side, knowing they will never vote for them or support them. So you leave me. And I'm a lifelong ULP supporter. I'm a lifelong member of the party. You leave me to suffer. You leave my child to suffer. My child can't get help. But this man who sit down on the block and trace you every week, he help them. And this is not to say the government should not help everybody and all of Vincentians, because people go and misconstrue my words. The government is supposed to help every Vincentian. But you will put more effort into helping that person who don't like you, who don't like your party, rather than helping me. So a lot of people were upset by that. A lot of people were upset at that youth rally and wanted to stay home. And a lot of people were just tired. They were tired of the promises from them MPs and nothing happening. They were tired of having to go. And if the people who were left in the constituency, you go to them for something, they acting like if they are lord over everything, whether it's materials or the minister. People were just tired, honestly. They were tired, they were tired. Like the video said, the man, if it did put a cruise ship and so we getting rid of Ralph, people would have voted for it. And that is the fact of the matter.
Should you're expressing a number of things that I myself have heard. Now, the one that you referred to, I didn't hear it myself, but I have heard reference to it before. That the comment was made that this young lady is now, and we can be open about it. As I said, I didn't hear it myself, but I believe you're referring to Vakisha John. And look,
Yes.
um, a ULP supporter, very strong ULP supporter, said to me at the when she spoke at the rally in Richmond Hill, the person said to me then, um, I am watching to see what she would get because we don't hear PMC come and say how she's part of the leadership. No, I didn't hear that. I was at the youth rally, so I didn't hear that. Right? No, the extent of that impact I can't speak to. And I do know that Vakisha supported the NDP and supported the NDP vigorously and was very critical of the UNP as a government. But I would just say that we aren't accepting and inclusive. In the same way, I am sure there are those who, based on the numbers, have voted NDP and may well be expected to be rewarded for their vote. Not well, rewarded for their vote, absolutely, because they figure I'm not getting the rewards I want, whether it's direct or national. Um, they expect to be rewarded for the vote. And who's to say that Rakisha was expecting a reward? From what she's saying, she sounded quite genuine in that she had, and we saw the gradual fallout. It wasn't an overnight thing. We saw what happened with Vakisha and the NDP over a period of time where she first of all resigned from the youth arm and resigned from the party and so on and so on and so forth. So we saw that coming. And so maybe she did come to that honest realization that listen, that party is a clear and present danger. I'm moving to the ULP, and she was embraced. Why is that so harmful? Why is that so difficult for Commerce to accept?
We no 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 no. That is not what anybody is saying. Vakisha, anybody who has decided to support the Unity Labour Party has all right to do so. Nobody is saying she doesn't have a right. She doesn't have the right to speak for the ULP or speak on behalf of the ULP, but do it on your platform. Listen to the issue. In the last election, more from the election, during the vaccine mandate, she was one of the people who led the charge against former Prime Minister Dr. Ross. The things that she has said about former cabinet members, supporters of the ULP, some people have found them unforgivable. Some people were so insulted by some of the things that she said that they have decided I'm not going to hold discourse or conversation with this young lady again. And then for you now to come and say, despite all of that and despite the insult and what she has said about me, I will now platform her. Despite what my supporters are saying, because even in the messaging when they had the video of her and all of that, people were like, me ain't liking this because she don't cuss people, she don't cuss me. And then for you to now go against the majority of your party, listening to one or two, and put her there to say she is the leadership and the future of ULP, when there are so many people who have done the work and who have been doing the work, and they're not platformed, they're not called the future of the party, they're not given a seat on the stage, they're not being told, let us pull up a chair for you to sit on, sit right here with us. They're not told that. They're not given that. It was insulting. Let me just be very honest. It was insulting to a lot of people like myself who during the last election got cussed out. And my friends who got cursed. It was insulting to us that you are now coming and telling us this person who has done this to us and said this to us, she is who you will be speaking to as the future leader of the party. After that, you know what people were saying? When she steps aside, when the PM steps aside, she needs to take over the party. Make her a senator. Let her do this, let her do that. I even spoke. When she came up, I said, hold on. Don't we have a chairman of the Youth Advisory Council? Why wasn't he speaking? Why wasn't he there at the youth rally? Eh? But she is there. And it was insulting. I don't have a problem with Akisha supporting ULP. She has all right to support who she wants to support. She's a very intelligent young lady. But to have her up there was insulting to me and to everybody who has supported the Unity Labour Party for years and who has taken word and doctrine on their name for years. And the people might bring on this stage. And did we put anybody who has left ULP on their platform? No, they did not. But we love hug up with enemy. And that is a problem with ULP. And I hope in the rebuilding of the ULP we learn to get rid of that. And
No,
that is my
no.
take on that.
Now, you've spoken very, very passionately about that issue, and strange enough, many of there are a number of comments. People are agreeing with you with that take. And I really don't want anyone to go away at all with and I'm glad you made that point, with the impression that this is an anti-anybody situation, but rather Shima has spoken very, very clearly about the particular situation, how the particular situation made individuals feel. And like I said, the night in Richmond Hill, a very strong comrade, a female as a matter of fact, when she was talking, she waited to see what vacation is going to get, because I guess that was the expectation that in a ULP. And I didn't know that the comment about the future leadership was made. So it was in that context it was made. Now, clearly, the numbers suggest a fall off, because there's a reduction. There's a clear reduction, overall reduction, because as I said, 1,000 people voted, 1,000 people less voted this election than last election. But even though there was a reduction, if we say the 1,000 are those who stayed home from the Labour Party, that then puts us at 31,000 something votes. How do we get to 27,000, sorry, 148, while at the same time the NDP catapults by 4,000? That says a lot. The NDP has expanded its base. Now, after the last election, they were talking about the popular vote was just under 500 votes. Now, when they talk popular vote, they're talking 10,000 or 9,800 something vote difference. That's significant. That's very, very significant. How do you see the Youth Labour Party overcoming such a defeat and removing such a deficit?
The ULP has to humble itself. Let me say that. And before I get to responding to that question, Stan, let me just say this. This election was a lesson for the ULP in there needs to be a change. This ULP team, this ULP that ran this 2025 general election is not the ULP that people voted for in 2001. I made a post about that. This is not the ULP team that ran in 2001. I think a lot of the values of the party shifted. A lot of and again, this is my opinion. This please don't once say Sian said that. A lot of the values of the party shifted. A lot of the values of the minister shifted. For the ULP to get back to its former glory, there needs to be serious introspection. What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? And what did I do that turned so many people off of my party? And one of the first things we have to deal with the ULP is messaging and its candidate selection. Not only do you have to choose a candidate who is bright, because a lot of the ULP candidates were bright, you also need to choose candidates who can speak with the people, meet with the people, and be genuine in their meetings with the people. Because a lot of the meetings felt forced and it felt like they had to do it. It didn't feel like they wanted to be there. It was, oh, this is part of what I have to do. So let me just come here. So come make a little lime and then I go home and I wanna pass the next day my vehicle, my glass up. I splash it with rainwater if rain coming and I don't care if you live or dead for the rest of the week until I have to go out and do this dog and pony show again. So they need to choose candidates who encompass everything: intelligence, who can meet with the people and sit with the people and speak with the people and listen to what they say, take it back and try to get something done. And they also need people who embody what the labor movement is. Not just people who are in politics to enrich themselves and people who are in politics to get ahead in life. I have spoken about my interest in throwing my hat in. I would never have, and I'm being very honest with you, I would never have thrown my hat into this ULP party. I would have run as an independent before I ran in this ULP party. And it's not so much the ministers or the cabinet, it was the people behind the scenes who killed the ULP. A lot of the people behind the scenes and a lot of the people who were advisors or high members or high ranking members of the ULP, they were not in it for the right reason. We need to get people back in the party, in the leadership of the party, who are there to advance the movement, the labor movement, to advance workers' movement, to advance the movement of black liberation, to advance reparations. We need people in the party who care about that and who just don't care about getting a contract or getting a position on something so that they could get money. We need people in the party who care about that. Because Dr. Gonsalves cares about this. But there are too many people who surround him who do not. And they play it very well. They play it very well. but they genuinely do not care. And in order for us to get back to what we had in 2000, 2001, we just need to, let us say, bathe with blue soap. We need to wash the party in blue soap and get rid of all of them. Wash the party in blue soap and get rid of, because I'm telling you, Sian, there are groups of young people who I know right now who are ULP supporters and who are Labour supporters who want to see this party return to what it was. But in order for this to happen, a lot of this stone in ULP, and I'm talking very freely here, this is me speaking. A lot of this stone who sit down in ULP who there to make money and who there to make better for themselves need to leave. We need wisdom and we need people who have been in this to guide the party. But you see, some of those people, they got to go. They got to go. Because if ULP comes back in 2030 with those people, it will remain the same. It will remain the same. They're still not going to win. They're still going to advance with the movement and the messaging that they had. And they are not going to be able to rise or move forward.
You
For
know,
ULP to be ULP again, some of the stone need to go.
Chanel, this has been such an interesting interview, and we may have to do a part two. You're a star now. I just made you a star. Just so you know, I just made you a star, right? Um, but seriously though, I mean, you your perspective seems to have been really appreciated by a number of the individuals who are watching, and so maybe when you're not too busy. By the way, I mean because we're over time already. But by the way, are you concerned about the scholarship, you know?
A bit, but I'm waiting to see what happens. I'm trying to set myself up so that if anything happens, I could stay here. But I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to give a while to see what they do. I think with what's happening right now, a China switch would not be the smartest move, especially with what's happening in the Southern Caribbean at this moment. So I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting at this point.
All right. Shidal, let me thank you so much for taking some time off to
No
chat with
problem.
us. Your morning, my night. I really appreciate it, and from the comments I've been seeing, the viewers really appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much, Shidal. Let's keep in touch, and you owe me a part
Yes.
two. Have a good day.
You too, darling. Bye.
All right, bye bye. And that was our good friend Vincent Chinon Monroe, who's a journalist studying currently in Taiwan, pursuing master's studies, and giving her take on the recently held 2025 general elections. Lots to chew on, lots to chew on. And look, this is her take. She's a young person I believe in her 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and that's her take. Excuse me, where she sees things since the last election. You are the passion. And I believe as we go forward and as the Unity Labour Party goes forward, and it's no secret that I am a member of the Unity Labour Party, as the ULP goes forward, one of the things that must be done, I learned from the mayor-elect of New York City, of New York rather, Zoran Mamdani, who in his campaign after Trump won last year, he walked through all of New York, in the 5 boroughs, and spoke to people, asking them, why did you vote for Trump? At this point in the rebuilding process of the ULP, we can't sit and assume that we know all the reasons why the elections went the way they went. We can sit and assume and pontificate that all people stayed at home. We can sit and determine from within ourselves the reasons why the numbers are the way they are. Or we can get up, go to the communities, go to those people and ask them, what did you do? I didn't vote. Why didn't you vote? Listen, I voted for the NDP, but you're a comrade. You've been voting Labour since 2001. Why did you switch? Listen. I met a gentleman a few days ago, and he said to me, I voted for Labour in 2001 and 2005. He said, I didn't vote in 2010 because I wasn't sure what was happening and so on, and with the home referendum stuff, so I didn't vote. He said in 2015, I voted for a particular candidate because I loved the energy and so forth. The candidate was new in 2015, and I loved what the candidate, the potential and what I thought the candidate would offer. I didn't get that, but I still voted for the candidate in 2020. This time, I voted NDP. I asked why, and we had a conversation. Going forward, it has to be our first priority. Go, speak to our voters, speak to our comrades, listen to them. Why did you not vote? Or why did you switch your vote? And once we understand that, we can then work on bringing those comrades back to the fold so that Labour can rise again. Labour cannot rise without Labour rights. Labour cannot rise without the comrades. And so for me, where I am thinking, the rebuild starts with them. Until next week, when I'm back with you with another edition of Uplift with Sehon Marshall, let me thank every single individual who logged on tonight and stayed for the entire period of this program. Thank you for sharing it. And hopefully you thoroughly enjoyed what we did tonight. Until next week, have a good night. God bless you.